Hi guys, just wanted to do a short little tutorial on how to improve thoracic mobility. So I'm seeing this a lot in my clients that were suffering from this rounded posture, this very compressed spinal column, especially in the upper part of the back. So I'm going to give you some strategies to try and elongate, decompress, and relieve some of the tension that might be in the body. So I'm going to be using a tennis ball, or if you've got a harder ball, like a lacrosse ball or something like that, or even a Franklin ball, those of our clients that have those, that might be suitable enough. I'm going to use a rolling pin. I've got a pipe here, but a rolling pin works perfectly. If you've got a soft, squishy ball, that would be great. You don't have to use it. I'll give you the options without. And I'm just using a little weight. So even if you just have like a little hand weight or an ankle weight or something like even a paper weight, something like that, that we can work with our breath work. If you don't have something like that, we can work the breath anyways. Okay, we're going to start with breath. So we're going to lie down on our backs. Now if you do tend to have a rounded posture in your upper back, then you might need some pillows underneath your head. What you're looking for is that the head isn't falling back here in an extended position. So we want to prop the head up so it's nice and elongated at the back of the neck, and we're in a nice supported position for the spine. Okay, now I'm going to put my little weighted ball here at my lower abdomen, and you can just place your hands there if you don't have something suitable. If you just got a little paper weight, if you've got maybe like a 1 kilo dumbbell and it doesn't feel too uncomfortable, you can have it just resting here. It's just to allow a little bit of pressure to come down into the belly. So we're going to take a breath in through the nose. And we're going to inflate. We're going to feel that ball or that weight rising. And then as you exhale through your mouth, you're going to feel the ball sinking into your abdomen. And what you're looking for is kind of a longer exhale than your inhale. Okay, so we're going to breathe in for maybe 3 counts. 2, 3, and you're going to exhale 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. So this is a great way to calm the body down first, get us into our parasympathetic state, and also to allow some of these outer muscles of our abdomen to relax a little bit. Sometimes they're working too hard. Notice if your belly does rise gently, you're not forcing, embracing it out, but just letting the breath to fill your torso and then to deflate. Good, and then you might move it up a little bit towards your navel side and do the same thing. And even if this is just your hands on your abdomen, but feel that sinking in feeling. So actually my low back tissue starts to relax into the mat. You might even notice your shoulders start to relax out. And that's great. You might even feel your spine starting to lengthen. So as you're doing this breath, allow yourself to adjust and to elongate. I'm going to go right under my rib cage now. Try and let that ball sink in without any pressure back. So if you feel, if you've got a weight on your abdomen that your belly is kind of fighting back at you, then just soften the breath. Let it go a little bit longer. Let your abdominal wall sink down. Okay, this is going to help your inner core muscles start to work a little bit more. So you can take this as long as you like. This is really calming for you. You might do up to 2 to 5 minutes. But if you feel like you've done sufficient breath to deflate, that's great. We're going to leave that to the side. Now what I'd like you to do is to take your rolling pin, and you might want to wrap it in a tea towel so it's not as hard. This is much better and more concentrated than a roller because we get to really open up the upper parts of the back that maybe feel a little bit locked. So I'm going to start around my kind of middle shoulder blades, and then we want to interlace the hands and hold behind the head. Now this can feel quite sharp just to be on here. I want you to position your shoulder blades so they're very wide on your back. So we don't want them squeezing backwards towards the rolling pin. Okay, and we're just going to do a little bit of an inhale and a bit of an exhale, making a slight bending movement with the spine. So we're arcing back over the roller gently and then flexing back up. I want you to try and keep your low back still. So even if it's just little tiny movements, we're moving where the pipe is. And then I'm just gonna wiggle down my mat a little bit so the pipe goes up a little bit higher, your rolling pin goes up a bit higher, and doing the same things. Now if that part of your back feels very locked and this feels too much for you, if you roll up a towel, really concentrated, maybe a tea towel, and start with just a little bit of movement with that and build up to something a little bit harder. If you're used to doing the roller, this might be the thing that helps you to really unlock that tension in your upper back. So I'm just moving up a little bit more. You might do 2 or 3. Try and keep your head from bobbing up and down. So I'm just keeping it resting in my hands. Feels very sticky here. I'm going to move up one more little notch and just do a couple more here. Thinking of your breastbone opening up like a slinky towards the ceiling and then closing that slinky back down. Now take your time very slowly to come off that rolling pin. And just notice how your spine feels just sitting up. It might feel like it's slightly shocked. If it feels too much for you, as I said, start with your rolling, just a towel underneath your shoulders and then build up to something harder. Now I'm going to use a tennis ball, or if you have a lacrosse ball, and I just want you to get right under your rib cage. Okay, so you're going to follow the line of your ribs, feel where your ribs become your abdominal tissue, and we're going to get that ball right underneath there. We're going to lie and breathe, and we're going to do that on both sides. Okay, this is to help open up all the tissue here that might be very compressed and restricted, and that's taking our spine into these patterns. Okay, so when we can unlock that tissue, we can allow some movement going up. Okay, so we're going to lie on our front. We're going to put that ball right underneath the ribs, and we're going to release into that tissue. And I'm just going to take very full breaths. I'm going to start near the top of the ribs. Make sure you're on one side and not in the middle. I'm going to do a little bit of a wiggle to try and get underneath the rib cage. This is also where the diaphragm sits. So if you're a bit sticky in your diaphragm, this is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm just allowing my body to sink into the ball a little bit more. And once it feels like that tissue gives a little bit, you might move it down and along that edge of the rib cage. But you should feel that more near the top is stickier. If you don't feel a lot of pressure here, then you might want to try the ball lower down the abdomen wall, so more near the pelvis, and see if that is a stickier area for you. But usually if we have some overflexion in the upper back, there is some restrictions in this upper part. So I'm just going to do one more deep breath. Feel free to stay there longer. Sinking in. And I just want you to notice when you lie down if that side feels different than the other side. You might feel like the ribs aren't sticking out as much and your body is settled into the mat more. I definitely feel that. Okay, and then we're going to come to the other side. And we're going to wiggle in. Ooh, and you might feel some gurgling going on in your gut. That is good. We want some gurgling. So notice if it's stickier on one side more than the other. Just going to wiggle in. And you can feel where the body doesn't want to give. Okay, so we just want to let that breath soften you into the ball. I'm just doing little tiny little oscillations, little wiggles, to just try and break up that tissue. So I definitely feel tighter over here than on my right side. So I'm just going to spend a bit longer. So if you feel like one side is tighter than the other, please take time to let go, okay? Because we're all slightly twisted, and so there might be kind of more stickiness in one area than the other. Okay, and I'm going to slowly come off of there. Now, if you have one of these soft balls, really, really helpful for those of you that are a little bit more rounded in the upper back. It just gives you a little bit more support and puts less pressure on the low back. But if you don't have the ball, just try and do this on the floor with your arms in the W position and just allow yourself to settle into the ground. Okay, I want your legs to just walk a little bit away from you and let the thighs settle. Try to have softness through the knees. Now I want you to tilt your pelvis upwards a little bit through the front. So the front of the hips are going to tilt up towards the ribs, the pubic bone towards your navel area, so that you feel a little bit more of the pubic bone on the mat. It should feel a very gentle tilt, and then let that feeling go. So whether you're on the floor, and if you're on the floor, your nose is on the ground gently, and we're going to try and gently tilt the pelvis. Now what your body might want to do is to squeeze the bottom. So I want you to try and resist that. Instead, think of your inner thighs and feel that little bit of gentle tilt through the front of the pelvis, hip bones to ribs. It might feel like your belly wall just comes up a little bit, which is great. Your lower abdomen should rise a little bit away from the floor. Nothing too aggressive, and then let that feeling go. And we're going to do that one more time. So we're going to tilt the pelvis up through the front. This is a posterior tilt. It should feel like your sacrum and your bottom part of the spine are almost moving down towards your feet. The pubic bone is moving up through the front. And then we're going to allow that upper body to round over the ball. So I'm going to keep the lower part in that slight tilted position with the belly retracted up away from the floor gently. And then breathing into the upper back, I want you to try and lengthen the abdominal wall where you release the ball. So those bottom ribs are going to start to move forward. You're going to stretch the abdominal tissue. Your legs are lightly reaching away from you. And your sternum is now really breathing in and expanding. So we're going to breathe into that upper sternum here. Maybe you feel like the mat is being pulled apart, and we're stretching the front of the body. And that should really make us work that upper part of the back. If your abdomen is let go, come down, reset it, and then just go only as far as you can without losing that lower abdominal tissue. And then I'm going to go back over the ball. Take a breath in. Connect that slight posterior tilt, that 12 o'clock position, abdominals connected, and then lengthening those ribs forward. Good. Shoulder blades gently come towards each other on your back, very gently, as the sternum goes forward, that chest bone going forward and up. Notice if you're tensing anything. If you are, let that feeling go. And then come all the way back down. Good. We're going to do that one more time. And lengthen and lift. Good. All the way forward. Feeling like you're slightly pulling the mat back. There might be a little bit of force through that, through the upper arms. And that's okay, as long as it doesn't feel like it's pulling into your low back. Okay, now this one is a little bit challenging. Feel free to save it for when you feel a little bit stronger. I'm going to bring my arms in. And again, this is if you're on the floor or not, but the ball does really help. The toes are tucked under, and I'm going to press down into my knees and let the hips come into the air. And once they're in the air, you're going to feel a lot more pressure through your shoulders. You're going to tilt your pelvis up through the front again and elongate your upper back. So we're going to try and find that extension with your core on, and then release it back down. So this is quite challenging. Your hips will slightly go up this way where the tail is up. So that'll be the initial position, and then you've got to tuck it the other way and really draw the hips up as you lengthen that upper back. And you're just hovering. It's like you're in a plank.
And then release. It's going to be very challenging on your core muscles. Okay, let's do that one more time. Tuck those toes, press the knees down. Let the hips come into the air. Once they're in the air, tilt them towards your ribs. Lengthen the upper back, shoulder blades on your back. 3, 2, 1, hold. And then release. Good, and then I want you to gently push yourself up. Now if you were doing that without the ball, just as a little, I would go here and come into a little sphinx position and then lift your hips up so that you're more in a plank. Tilt the pelvis, lengthen through the upper back. Okay, so it's a little bit more of a plank position, a little bit more of a shoulder supported position, and then come back down. Okay, but if that feels too much, just go with the other versions first and then progress to this. Okay, so once again, if we're doing this without the ball, we press into the knees, lift the hips. If you can see yourself in the mirror, tilt your pelvis, lift your abdominal wall so you're retracting, shoulder blades on your back, lengthen the upper back, sternum forward. Head is down. Make sure the chin doesn't lift. And I hold for about 3 seconds and then come back up. Now what I'd like you to feel is in a kneeling posture, how the spine feels now. And I want you to bend into your hips, just do a little hinge. And then I want you to feel a little pelvic tilt up through the front, sending the thighs down, and then feel that sternum lifting up, kind of like you did in your plank. See how that feels to be in that kneeling posture. Hinge at the hips. Feel a little bit of the hamstrings lengthening. As you come up, tilt the pelvis up through the front. Good. Feel those thighs stretching. Watch you not leaning back into your back. Feel the navel in, the chest expanding. You might even bring your shoulders up. Okay, you might allow a little bit of elevation so that that chest can expand. And then I want you to try that in standing. So standing up, feeling a little hinge at your hips. Feel the hamstrings even more now. Tilt the pelvis up through the front. Good, feel the navel in, the chest expanding. So that sternum lifting up, think what we did on the floor. And open through those sit bones. Exhale, tilt the pelvis up through the front so we have that pelvis in a nice neutral position. Hips to ribs, navel in, chest expanding. Good, notice how you feel. Feel that decompression through your spine. And we want to walk around the rest of the day feeling nice and elongated, and hopefully you feel a little bit more space in your waist and a little bit more lift through your body. Thank you.